So first we're going to discuss the body of the sphenoid bone. And as we know that the body lies in the center and it has 5 surfaces, which are superior, inferior, anterior, posterior and lateral. Like I mentioned, this was the posterior or dorsal surface. Now, it will be particularly helpful if you look at these anatomical structures of the sphenoid bone from different views. Like this, it will become less tricky to identify them. Now, we can see the posterior view. Then we have the anterior view. Next, we have the inferior view. And at last, we have the superior view. Now, we can appreciate the body here. Next, we have the lesser wings, and the greater wings can be observed laterally, and at inferior side, we have the 2 pterygoid processes. Okay, so these are all the views. So let's move forward with these images in mind and learn all the details of these anatomical structures of our sphenoid bone. First, we have the superior or the cerebral surface. Now its first landmark is that it has a planum sphenoidale, which is basically the horizontal part of the superior surface of the body. Well, the planum sphenoidale separates the anterior cranial fossa from the sphenoidal sinuses. Now we know that the body also forms a depression that houses the pituitary gland, and it is termed as the sella turcica. In the sphenoid bone, the anterior boundary of the sella turcica is completed by 2 small eminences, one on either side, called the anterior clinoid processes, while the posterior boundary is ending at its superior angles in 2 tubercles, called the posterior clinoid processes, the size and form of which vary considerably in different individuals. Then we have the hypophyseal fossa, which is also called the pituitary fossa, and it is a notch in the roof of the body of the sphenoid bone in the middle cranial fossa. And the posterior body is formed by the square-shaped process of sphenoid bone known as dorsum sellae, that is ending at tubercles, as you can see here at the posterior clinoid process. There is also a bony part of the cranium at the skull base, a shallow depression behind the dorsum sellae that slopes obliquely backward, and it's called a clivus. Moving on to the next anatomical landmark, we have a prechiasmaticus groove, and behind the prechiasmatic groove there is an elevation that we call the tuberculum sellae. Following the sellae tuberculum, there is a chiasmatic groove, which is a narrow transverse groove that lies at the front of the body and is also present in the surface. Now next we have the inferior surface of the sphenoid bone, which presents a middle line and a triangular spine, which we call the sphenoidal rostrum. Now this is continuous with the sphenoidal crest on the anterior surface. There lies a vaginal process of medial pterygoid plate which articulates in front with the sphenoidal process of the palatine, forming a palatovaginal groove, and behind this with the ally of the vomer it forms the vomerovaginal groove. Okay, so let's move on to the next surface, which is the anterior surface of the body, in which we have the sphenoidal crest. The sphenoidal crest, which articulates with the perpendicular plate of the ethmoid to form a small part of the septum of the nose. Now, on either side of the crest, there is an irregular opening leading into the corresponding sphenoidal air sinuses. They are partially closed in front and below by 2 thin curved plates of the bone, which we call the sphenoidal conchae. Now leaving in the articulated skull a round opening at the upper part of each sinus by which it communicates with the upper and back part of the nasal cavity, and occasionally with the posterior ethmoidal air cells. Now, the lateral margin of the anterior surface is serrated and articulates with the lamina pepericea of the ethmoid. Now, completing the posterior ethmoidal cells, the lower margin articulates with the orbital process of the palatine bone, and the upper one articulates with the orbital plate of the frontal bone. Now, moving on to the posterior surface, which articulates with the basilar part of the occipital bone. Over here, we have the posterior clinoid process. Apart from these anterior clinoid process, we have the middle clinoid process, which gives attachment to the tentorium cerebelli. Now, tentorium cerebelli is a Latin for tent of the cerebellum, and it is an extension of the dura mater that separates the cerebellum from the inferior portion of the occipital lobes. So at last we'll talk about the lateral surface of the body. Now on this surface, we see a carotid sulcus, which is a broad groove curved like the letter F for lodging cavernous sinus and internal carotid artery. Next we have the foramen lacrum, which lies at the posterior end of the carotid groove and posterior-medial to the foramen ovale. Now its upper end is bounded posterior-laterally by the apex of the petrous temporal bone and anterior-medially by the body of the sphenoid and by the posterior-medial margin of the crater wing. Now along the lateral margin of this groove, we have a ridge of the bone which we call the sphenoidal linguella. So guys, what did we study? We studied about the body and its 5 surfaces, which were the superior, inferior, anterior, posterior, and the lateral surfaces. And we also talked about their all anatomical landmarks. Now, next we'll move forward to the sphenoidal air sinuses. Talking about the sphenoidal air sinuses, as we've previously discussed, they are separated by a septum, meaning that the sphenoid body is essentially hollow and the body articulates with the ethmoid bone anteriorly, and it is here the sinuses open up into the nasal cavity. These are the asymmetrical air sinuses which are closed by sphenoidal conchae. Now these sinuses open into the lateral wall of the nose in the sphenoethmoidal recess above the superior conchae. So in the next section, we're going to talk about the greater and the lesser wings of the sphenoid bone.